we've come a long way on this. Were any of you with us last fall when we were talking about this? Okay. I'll give you a little bit of a fill-in with it. Something that I've been a science teacher most of my adult life. The other times it's not been science, it's been math. But something that I've always wanted to create has been some sort of game that if you knew science, you could play the game better. If you wanted to play the game better, you go learn a little bit more science. Originally, last fall, when we started putting this together, and we've got a few new faces we've added on and things like that, but this game was originally envisioned as a game that would encompass all science. That's a little bit harder than I thought it'd be. But we were looking at figuring out some way, and we may, one of these guys may carry it on here toward the end anyway. But what happens, we wanted to have a game that would incorporate basically science. You've got two main areas, physical sciences and biological sciences. Pretty much all of them can be put into one of those two things. Originally, we wanted to have a game of some sort that would totally encompass all these areas. And we spent probably the first 2 months after we presented this here last fall. And the scale of that was so unbelievable, we decided that we would definitely have to cut it down some. We'd already used up a couple months. My background is in chemistry mostly. I think that's my strong suit. So that, to me, it made sense that we might just go ahead and go in that direction. To make everything else real fun, this was the first year that I had taught at this school. So in addition to figuring out where my classrooms and stuff like that was supposed to be, I was trying to figure out who the kids were that was supposed to be working with me. But luckily we had a really great bunch of kids. And when we started last fall, like I say, it was an all-encompassing game, but we decided to break it down into just chemistry. Originally last fall, I had a Chemistry 2 class, okay? That only lasted for one semester. And one of the first problems that we came into contact with, one of the first problems that we had with this was the students that I was using to put this together. We started out trying to use some Chemistry 2 students, but we didn't have them the whole year. So our Chemistry 1 students, they hadn't had the chemistry yet. So we had to sort of pull double duty on them, and we got some kids that really were able to learn and create this stuff at the same time. Now, as it went on, we've looked at Pokemon type games, Magic the Gathering type games and stuff like that. We had kids, we would come up with a concept and I'd try it out on my freshmen. Come up with a concept, I'd try it out on juniors or seniors. So by probably the end of January, we'd come to the conclusion that we had enough material here for 2 games at least. One for the lower, maybe the elementary, middle school students, and then another one that falls more into that Pokemon Magic the Gathering category. So we split up and we started 2 games. And we've made actually more progress since we split it up, first into chemistry and then categorized it into a lower level and an upper level. We've made more progress on the game, probably tenfold than what we did the first 2 or 3 months we were working on it. Now we're still working on it, but where we're at right now is we have some really good folks that, and believe it or not, when they start working on this stuff and they're wondering, they'll start talking about something, they'll ask me, well, why is this? I said, because that's the way chemistry is. It's supposed to be that way. Some of the things that changes I might have made to it, they may not have seen yet, so they'll be asking me. Y'all familiar with the difference between the acid and the base in terms of the real definition, a proton donor or proton acceptor? Well, we printed out, Evan can show you up close if you want to see them a while ago. We printed out some temporary game pieces that we could use, and one of the things is an acid, one's a base. So when he first saw that, he saw this proton symbol in there with arrows going away from it, and another one with arrows going to it. He didn't have a clue what we were talking about, but I guarantee you the next time he has to give a definition of an acid or a base in terms of proton donation, he'll know. All right? So, but anyway, our two games, I don't know which order you guys are going in. We have a board game, and we also have more of a, like I say, a Pokemon type game. So I'll turn it over to these guys, and they can fill you in a little bit on it, and hopefully here before long we'll have something. KVEX already promised we'll have a premiere party at their place when we get it done, and Jeff said he would supply the pizza, so we're going to hold him up to it. Who wants to say it? I don't have anything else to say. Thank you.
All right, so I'm Evan, this is Ben. We were more focused on the more complex trading card games. So most of y'all, like Handshoe said, you've seen Pokemon and Magic and games such as that. So we plan to have such packs of cards like you could go to Walmart and buy. So this would be what a card would look like. You would have the back of the card with our logo, and then the front of the card. And so this card is carbon, so it has its number and then the symbol. And so you really have to know what you can do with carbon before you can use it. So the more you know about chemistry, the periodic table, elements and stuff, the more you can play the game. So it's a turn-based game where each player comes in with a pre-made deck of cards that they choose beforehand that they get from starter packs and stuff. And we have a format that you lay the cards out and you start by drawing cards and then you begin to play the game. Each person has different combinations of cards that they hopefully have strategized beforehand that they can draw and play in certain orders to begin to combat so they can begin to attack their opponent and lower their overall health. So the whole goal of the game is using your knowledge of chemistry to defeat your opponent.
Let me add something right there too. I'm sure you have always heard when something's about to happen, you've got to decide to do something. The phrase is, they always call it the nuclear option. Well, in this game, we actually have a nuclear option. So, or it's coming up. So.
You want to talk about the nuclear option?
Well, I was just going to, okay. A struggle in making this game was that there are a lot of chemical compounds and a lot of elements on the periodic table, so we had to figure out what we could include and what we couldn't, what we had to limit. And we sort of narrowed it down into a couple types of damage that you can deal to your opponent and eventually knock them out and win. So there's explosive damage, which is like combustibles and the like. You've got propane, butane, and some more, I think. Yeah. And then you've got radioactive damage, which you can, if you play a certain card, like uranium, for instance, which is radioactive, then you will take radiation damage over time from playing that card as a penalty. The reason you would play a card that has a penalty on it is because uranium is useful. In this game, uranium is what you use to go into the nuclear option. And the nuclear option is sort of a last resort. If you don't have anything else, if you're losing, then you probably want to do that, and it'll improve your chances of winning. Do you want to talk about, I don't know. Here. To win, you just reduce your opponent's health to 0. And a problem with this game is we couldn't figure out how many cards you would draw from the prearranged deck, so we decided to have a limiting factor of energy. So you get a certain amount of energy per turn, and then every turn you would be able to do certain things with that energy. You could combine cards to make compounds, and then you could split cards or play cards or remove cards from your active zones.
We even have...
Oh, yes. Yeah, we have tokens for energy, so that you would get a set amount of these per turn.
That sums up the game, I believe.
Yeah.
Let's see, and then...
There's... Oh, you could talk about
the scientist. Oh, yeah.
2 minutes left. Y'all come
Is it all right?
The board game version.
Right. Okay, so we're not all geniuses like Ben and Evan. So we created the less advanced version, but we also have different levels for the questions. The way you play this game is that you roll the dice and you answer a question. And if you get the question right, you advance as many spaces that are on the dice. But if you get the question wrong, you go back the amount on the dice. And I think that you can't even play this game if you don't know anything about the elements. So this would help not only high school students, but also younger students learn a little bit about the periodic table.
We'd actually even looked into the possibility originally of having nothing more than something like a matching game. Pick up the cards and match them, which I like this a little bit better than that. This is a little bit more beyond it, and they've done a really good job putting this together. So